Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is currently part number 3 of daily number 426, where we learn to be a better gamer. We've been examining a whole bunch of games from our good friend Max, who submitted a replay pack of 10 of his games and talked about the adjustments between each one. We just finished watching game number 6 in part 2 and talked about how all these adjustments that Max made have added together to him just not only winning a game, but crushing a strategy that he lost to previously, and all the adjustments came together to fend off all sorts of proxy pylons and problems in the middle, blah, 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 etc. But the one thing I want to note is that in game number 6 and game number 7, Max didn't write down any adjustments from one game to the next. Now, I will note that does end up being pretty common, where you can't always be change. Sometimes it's good to hit a point where you're like, and now I'm going to sit. I'm just going to play 2 or 3 games and get a little bit more comfortable with where I am. However, if you haven't been making a lot of adjustments recently, don't plateau and sit. It's very easy to win 10 games in a row and be like, no, I'll play a few more and do the same thing. You can almost always find things to adjust, but there's only so much that the human mind can learn that effectively. So I actually skipped game 7, which was another crushing victory for Max, and we're going to hop into his game 8. Where Max is playing against Myron, brah. And Max is going to end up fending off some early harassment. He's going to be up against an early expanding player. Waltzes right into the main base, no problem. Sees literally everything that's going on. So let's go ahead and count the adjustments as they end up occurring. Yes, there's the fast factory. There's the concussive shell. There's the third refinery happening after we get the stem. Here are these 2 structures popping down. But uh-oh, Max, where is your engineering bay? You see that? You see that little slip up on the engineering bay? We point that sort of thing out because we want to emphasize how easy it is to get caught up in the game itself and lose track of all these 50 things you're keeping track of. Oh yeah, I'm going to get my engineering bay right when these 2 things go down. I'm going to make sure I don't miss these supply depots. I'm going to make sure I keep making SCVs. I want to scout his base at 8 minutes. It's very easy to get caught up in the last thing that you remember, like, oh yeah, I got to be moving out early, and to forget some of your other adjustments. So Max does move out. Remember how he said in game number 5 that we looked up at today? Max said, oh yeah, I want to try being way more aggressive. And look at this. Moves way the hell forward and even skirts a Marine forward and lets it take a little bit of damage before running away. Because Marines and Marauders have a 2.25 move speed, as do Sentries. And that's the only thing that's really going to end up cutting your army apart. So I love this. And here is the engineering bay just a smidge later than we would ordinarily like it to be so. So we're going to move forward and just watch a nicely executed game by Max. He's going to end up, oh yeah, there's the second engineering bay popping down right now. We're going to see him skirt along this top edge. He's getting, you'll see a Ghost Academy and this armory as well. He's still on just 3 barracks. He's doing a drop on the backside, picking off some forges, loading up, pulling back. He does end up losing a medevac, but that's okay. Max is continuing to be aggressive. He's building himself a 3rd command center. He's going to snipe these pylons. He's going to try to snipe this nexus, which he is barely going to do. And then going to run away again and rejoin these drop ships up here on top. And of course, this is kind of a nightmare situation to be in as Protoss, where you're just getting dropped all over everywhere. It seems like no matter what you do, it's losing play. But does manage to get this Nexus up. In the meantime, we see Max getting himself 2 extra barracks. He's been producing out of 3 literally this whole time, and is just now getting the add-ons for those. I will note, in this Army Supply tab, Max looks like he's quite a ways ahead, but he has 6 medevacs out on the field. That's 12 food in terms of medevacs. If we just look at the amount of damage that the Stalkers, or excuse me, the Sentries, Stalkers, and Immortals can do together, this I actually think is a lot more even than it necessarily looks. The big reason that the Protoss is behind is these upgrades are behind. And we can see Max having quite a food lead. Completely uncontested 3rd. you'll see that the edge of here has been scouted out completely. Max is doing a really nice job. But there's something that's been happening throughout this game, which is that as we're seeing all this amazing drop harass, if we just come here, we see, like, very little. Even at this very moment, as I open up the Army tab, it's looking more and more even all the time. And as we look around, if that's all that's at our front, and Protoss were to take his 11 Zealots, 2 Immortals, 9 Stalkers, and 5 Sentries and put some pressure on us, we might be in a little bit of trouble. We might be looking quite a bit more grody. So Max, fortunately though, ends up building up a reasonable force, scans, kills stuff off, ends up getting harassed a little bit. And what I want to note though is, in the interest of time, as it turns out, I think we will be able to do it in 3 parts. Yeah, it'll just be 3 long parts. Max looks great in this game. I mean, hell, even look at his upgrades. 3-3 coming right down the pipeline when Protoss is only 1-1. Fantastic. But in this game, let's listen to what the adjustment that Max made was. I like this quite a bit. It said, the adjustment I'm going to make for next game is going for 5 racks before taking a 3rd command center. It's a safer play and gives you good unit output to commence an attack if you feel the toss is weak. Remember how that whole time I was talking about, oh, look, the harass is good, but you see how the front's kind of weak? That's one of those things that can be kind of a feeling that ends up happening in gameplay, where a lot of masters and grandmasters will have this feeling of, okay, I'm doing damage here, but I'm scared he'll attack me. And sometimes he doesn't, and you're like, whew, got out of that one, he just didn't attack, yeah! But because you felt so vulnerable and gross, you look at that and try to make sure if there's any sort of reasonable switch that you should make. And again, if you're bronze, silver, platinum, gold, diamond, any of them, and you're saying, well, how do I know if my feeling is correct or not? Just listen to your feeling. The game will let you know if it's wrong. You will know if it's wrong because when you make the adjustment, you'll lose even worse and feel even more like shit, right? And all you have to do is say, oh, cool, that's the wrong way. Adjust back. Easy. Done. No problem at all. So in this game, Max is going to say, you know what? These barracks felt pretty late. In fact, if I come to the 12-minute mark, we see these barracks only just got started. Our 3rd command center is wrapping up, but, I mean, geez, we have 6... we just don't really have that much. If we were to lose another medevac or 2, which is entirely reasonable, we might be in a world of frickin' hurt. Hell, if Protoss just didn't go for this 3rd and instead went for a robotics facility and was making units out of all these 7 gateways, we'd actually be in a lot of trouble from a 2-base timing push. So let's look at the one defining championing game, the best game from Max. It's against IG Maxed, who I believe is a really good player. I know NV Maxed used to be Sase on the Korean server. But we're going to look at this game on Cloud Kingdom. Look at this beautiful symphonic game from Max. He literally said, quote, this game felt so good. And a lot of it was due to that 2 racks before the 3rd command center. And one thing actually that I want to just note really quickly, one of the biggest things that pro players will end up adjusting is just switching the order of things. Like, I want to end up with 5 racks and 3 bases, but should I go 3 base and then the 4th and 5th racks, or should I go 4th and 5th racks and then the 3 base? We just sort of swap them to solve our problems. Again, we're not like, I'm going to go mech versus I'm going to go bio. It's not huge changes, it's adjustments, not changes. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, you'll see Zergs do clever things like, well, maybe I'll just get my carapace before I end up getting my Zergling speed. Or even Terran players who get the +1 attack upgrade before they start Stim or Concussive Shell or Combat Shield. This is something that a lot of the Slayers Terran players do. They'll get the Marauder with Concussive Shell, they'll get some Marines, and then they'll go for an Engineering Bay and just get +1 and just plow through their upgrades all game long, instead of going for really fast medevacs. You know, just a little tiny rearrangement of things. So this is a game where we just want to admire. We're just gonna admire this game from Max and listen to his one reasonable adjustment. And after this game is said and done, we're gonna go back and look at that initial first game and see the whole world of difference. the whole freaking world of difference that ended up happening. And one thing that we're going to end up doing is around the 10-minute mark, we're just going to be stopping and getting a count of the units and the status of everything. Here's Max said he's getting his starport up, looking quite good. Moving out very aggressively at the 8-minute mark. Protoss player responding by doing extra warp-ins with his gateways. Warp-ins he may not even want to be doing. Here are our 2 medevacs coming out. We got these extra add-ons. Did we end up getting that engineering bay? Yeah, we did. There it is. And it'll be getting its upgrade in a moment. There it goes down. And here comes Barracks 4, and Barracks 5 will actually be hot on its heels over there. There it is. And look at this wonderful unit movement, just double-checking everything. Why is that a good time to do the double-checking? Because we did a push at 8 minutes, and we're going to do another push again at 10 minutes when our medevacs come out. In between then, we're going to check for pylons. And holding the watchtowers, look at the total map lockdown that Max has at 10:30. This is Protoss's vision. An observer here and an observer here, just to make sure he's not going to die to counters. And of course, Max is feeling hungry, so he will try to kill off that observer if he can. Checking for the third, getting an aggressive position. Look, forced 2 photon cannons. Forced more warp-ins over here. This is just wonderful. And of course, he ended up pushing, and he saw that there was a Colossus going down. So, quite simply, he just gets another starport up. And has this a very, very aggressive mixture. There's the second eBay plopping down to follow up on the heels. Here's a command center coming up. It's at this point in time that these feelings that you have become very important. Oh, well, I'm going to get these 2 barracks up before I get my 3rd command center up. And now that you're delaying this 3rd command center, you're delaying these 2 gas geysers, and you might feel to yourself, well, shit, I can't get level 2 upgrades and get ghosts with the Mobius reactor and produce marauders at the same time. You can even see this reflected up in Max's resource count. So it looks like we're going to have to adjust things a little bit more for this new circumstance. But as we're seeing, Protoss is suddenly just looking really teetering on the edge of destruction. There's been no huge losses in the units lost tab. Look, it's been almost nothing. And amazingly, Max is ahead by a good amount of food. Doing a great job taking this stuff out. We're just going to move forward a smidge. Here's a nicely timed attack, taking out 1, 2 Colossi. Max ends up being unable to win this battle, so he just does as much damage as he can while trying to take out the Colossus and then pulls back. And look at that great food count. And the 3rd base is up. Ghosts are pouring out. We have more barracks added in. It looks like this adjustment was fantastic. And Max, soon enough, is going to end up just crushing over his opponent. So I will give you the delight, and of course Max the delight of showing him off. Yeah, here he comes. There's the 2nd scan. Protoss didn't attack once the entire game. Protoss was permitted to do whatever he wanted. He was almost done with 3-3, and Max just crushed it. Max just crushed it. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and take some benchmarks, right? Let's come to the 8-minute mark. Alright, whoa! Come on, computer, work with me. 8 minutes, there we go. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to open up a new notepad file. Well, we're going to just go ahead and take some notes. At 8 minutes, what did he have? At 8 minutes, our good friend, we're just going to record some times. I'm going to record it at 8, 10, and let's say 13, because the first game wasn't very long. So, 36 SCV, 2 Marauder, 17 Marine, 17 Misters. Well, it looks like we were almost done with our starport. Almost done with starport. Done with concussive. Wonderful. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to once again go to the 10-minute mark, and we're going to take some recordings down. It looks like Barracks 4 and 5 are almost done. 5 racks almost done. +1 started. We can see that up there. Combat, 1/2 done. Wonderful. What's in the unit count? We see, okay, 47 SCV, 6 Marauder, we have 19 Misters, and we will have 2 Medivacs. And then let's take one last reading at the 13-minute mark. Cool. Third base almost done at 13 minutes. Third base almost done. Let's get that unit count again, right? We have, wow, we have a huge unit count in the last 3 minutes. We've been doing good work. I mean, 9 Marauders, 25 Marine, 7 Viking, 4 Medivacs. You're noticing that these sorts of benchmarks are useful when I'm comparing me to myself. Geez, look at all the stuff we're getting. Holy cow. +1 done. We're getting +2, +1. We're getting +1 air. We're getting Mobius. I think that's how you spell Mobius. Mobius. Maybe that's the worst spelling of Mobius ever. Anything else that I want to record that would be useful to me? I'm getting racks. Yeah, no, I'm still at 5 racks. Cool. Cool. So now, after all that, we're just going to look at just how the buildings compared up. We're going to go all the way back to that first game. There's only been 9 games between this game and the first one. Only 9 games between game 1 and game 9, between the last game we saw and this first one. Not only are we going to look at how much better everything felt for us in terms of the unit count, the building count, when we're getting all that other stuff up. Keep in mind, Max now suddenly is being way more aggressive with his units. He's able to shut down 6 gates just by pushing out and shutting down all the movement of any sort of forward pylon to buy himself time. He's killing off forward pylons when he wants to take his third. He's having a really well defended third. He's getting his ghosts up pretty quickly. There's been so many freaking adjustments that have happened in just the last few games. And I'm sure there's many more that will end up happening down the road, but right now Max is just looking really, really strong. And you're noticing that the adjustments are also getting a little bit more specific over time. It's becoming things like, instead of, wow, I don't have any money, I guess I should get my gas later so I don't have to spend all this money. Cool, that seems pretty reasonable. But then continuing along with this, the later stages are, well, you know what? I'm just going to send an SCV a little bit later to scout. I'm just going to be doing little tweaks to when I get my supply depot relative to some of my add-ons and these kinds of things. Max did a pretty huge one on game 8. I'm going to get my 2 barracks first instead of the second 2 barracks. And you'll sometimes have those pop up, but the important thing is that these little small adjustments are helping us lots. All right, cool. Now that monologue's done, the reason I went on that huge long monologue, not only to be educational, but also because this game needed to load. Alright, let's go ahead and look at our unit count as we come to the notepad. Alright, at 8 minutes already we are seeing that we're ahead by 4 SCVs in the future. We have 1 more Marine, but we were almost done with the starport in the first case. Good, the timing here hasn't changed. We were done with concussive. So it looks like just by getting this refinery a little bit later, we're a little bit smoother in terms of some of these basics. Now 4 SCVs might not seem like that much, but when you view it as a percentage, that's pretty big. I mean, we're getting, what, an 1/8 more SCVs? That's pretty significant, 36 versus 32. This gets exaggerated as time goes on, and we're starting to look at some of these little adjustments. Now, there hasn't really been that much engagement between these two. We're seeing we're still ahead by that SCV count. Look at this. We have more Marauders, more Marines. Not by leaps and bounds, but wow, if you're getting 4 more SCVs and 2 more Marauders and 3 more Marines, and is +1 started in this game? Nope. +1 nowhere in sight. +1 is nowhere even remotely done. And in fact, Combat Shield is half done in game number 9. Stim is already done in game number 9. We're getting Barracks 4 and 5 almost done in game number 9. In game number 1, wow, we are way far behind. And as I come to the 13-minute mark, I guess it's a little bit unfair for me to compare this period now to the other game, because there was a drop that happened. We ended up... No, actually, we hardly lost anything. Wow, look at those resources. So yeah, the final test comes as we come here and we see that we have, hey, we caught up in SCV. But look at this, 7 Vikings in the last game versus no Vikings here. Our Marine Marauder count, virtually identical when we take into account these losses. Our +1, if we go to the production tab, this is what really tells another pretty big story. We don't have any upgrades done. In the other game, we were getting 2-1. We were getting this range. The Mobius reactor was being researched. We had 5 barracks already done. The amount farther ahead that Max is just in these absolute numbers is astounding. Max has way more stuff. Way freaking insanely more stuff. Faster upgrades, more units. The third is up slightly earlier in this game. It's the only thing that's better in game number 1 versus game number 9. But of course, in game number 9, we elected to get a faster third. So we're seeing in all these games that these little tiny adjustments overall ended up just getting us way more units in way better situations with way more upgrades, all because one at a time we just had little adjustment, little adjustment, little adjustment, little adjustment, and suddenly we're going from being this passive Terran who's running the risk of losing to an unupgraded basic Colossus push to a Terran that is walking over a very high-level Protoss without seemingly any resistance at any point in time, which was great. The last game I want to look at is something that will happen a lot. This is a game that ends up being pretty subtle in terms of analysis. Excuse me, my voice is dying. Ooh. Ah, delicious. So in this game, TT1 is the opponent. TT1 is going to try to go for a no unit early expand. He gets his early cybernetics core research up, but he's basically going to go for a unitless expo that Max cleverly blocks with an engineering bay. So what does TT1 do? He just gets a gas geyser and 4 gates. But it's not an all-in 4-gate. He just gets 1 unit, a sentry, and then he expands. And here comes the 4 warp gates. And this is a pretty nice little adjustment by TT1 to deal with that sort of pressure. But now Max is in a situation where there's not that much big that he can do differently, right? I mean, he's going for his very fast starport, but suddenly all these units end up swooping in, and he ends up dying. It's these sorts of games that you have to just be very, very careful with what your next adjustment is. You don't want to make it too big. You don't want to say something like, well, I have to automatically build 4 bunkers every game. That will completely disrupt the rest of your build. This is what Max said. Max said that his adjustment was that he needed to have an SCV patrolling out here to see if there was some sort of 4-gate coming. Because right now, here's Max's vision. Nothing going on Max's vision. He had an SCV here, so he saw that there were 4 gates. He's hiding back here in the trees.
Additional supplies.
The 4-gate push literally just appeared at his front door. The first bunker evaporated almost immediately, and the second bunker never got an SCV repairing it ever. So hey, if I had an SCV here, able to see that a push was coming, I could have pulled SCVs for the repair earlier. Love that sort of adjustment. I think it's great. Another adjustment we maybe could make. In the next games, these supply depots that I have to build anyways, I'm going to build them as part of a wall off at the front and try to negate some of the damage these zealots can do. Very commonly seen on the Korean server. But the important thing is that these adjustments that are going to happen in these weird, small corner case situations have to be very minor. And this is what will separate like a Code S player from a Grandmaster on a server. These Code S players are very good at seeing these little weird tiny corner case situations and knowing the answer there. And let's say that Max put his SCV at the front of his base, and it turned out still not to be enough. No big deal. It just needs to keep solving all those problems one at a time. So, given the fact that this has been one of the longer dailies I've ever done, we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up. Just want to say that Fun Day Monday for next week is the Counterattack Fun Day Monday. Send me a game to monday@day9.tv, where you may only counterattack. If he has a huge army in the middle, you can't attack it. And a counterattack, by the way, is when you just go around him and hit his base. I don't mean where you defend and then you go back and attack him. I mean you go around his army into his main base. You may only counterattack. Sure, if you counterattack and he brings his army back there and you have a battle there, that's fine. Sure, if you're sitting there defending and he attacks you and you just defend it, you're fine. But you may only counterattack as your move to attack. I want to see some crazy base races. Yeah, send those to monday@day9.tv. Newbie Tuesday next week will just be something new. Tomorrow and Thursday will be reruns. So tune in here at 7 p.m. to see reruns of me while I go off to the Sloan Conference and talk about how esports is the future. Until then, signing out. Goodbye, all. Have yourself a wonderful, 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 wonderful Tuesday.